The warrior squad is in camp, but then protagonist Choi Hyun-sung notices the coffee in his mug shaking. Something approaches them. The ground begins to open up right under their feet, and out of its depths bursts an ippugi, a huge sea serpent that couldn't become a dragon because of a curse. Warriors quickly lined up in a blade of wind formation. Mages chased away the aura of fear the monster had inflicted. Choi Hyun-sung is in the vanguard and has already begun to form a force in his hand to attack. The command is forward, a leap and a crushing blow. Choi Hyun-sung's powers were awakened late, only a year before this battle with ippugi. Before he became one of the lucky recipients of the awakened powers, he was just a simple 27-year-old guy working hard at a construction site. One day a portal to another dimension formed in their world. The event was both a gift and a curse for many. The portal unleashed an unknown power that began to awaken in people, but along with it came the monsters that began to terrorize the human world. The awakened rose to fight them, which quickly improved their financial and status in society. They became heroes, and by fighting the monsters they were able to sell the loot that fell from them. Another plague that came from beyond the fringe was the mana shortage disease. Choi Hyun-sung's father suffers from this almost incurable affliction. Because of this, his mother is working 2 jobs. His sister has given away all of the money saved up for their wedding. And Choi Hyun-sung is himself working hard in the fields. He really wants to awaken in order to help his father, because the only thing that can save him is a rare artifact which falls out of a monster. But awakening is a lottery, which is unclear how to play. Once back after a hard shift, the hero began to imagine how he would become awakened and very much wish for it. Be afraid of what you wish for, as they say. He wished for it, it came true. Suddenly a sign appears in front of him saying, "You are awakened," almost driving the hero to a heart attack. He is overjoyed and holds his breath waiting for his status and skills to be determined. But the system upsets him, telling him that not only does he have almost nothing in his skills and abilities, so for some reason he has less points than others. He gets frustrated and almost cries over what good it will do to wake him up. But then he notices the column of personal skills, where the function to sell and buy is lit. When he clicks to buy, he sees a huge list of weapon skills, artifacts, elixirs, and other things flying before his eyes, all worth an incomprehensible currency point. To his delight, Choi Hyun-sung discovers he has as much as 2 billion of that currency. He immediately looks up an elixir for his father, but to buy the rarity he needs to earn in addition to what he has already been given 10 billion more. Understanding how this works, the hero begins trading, choosing his class and skills. First and foremost, he buys a strength crystal, which after swallowing it pulls his body up to the level of a novice jock. So the hero spends the evening in shopping and selling, sorting out the assortment. The next day he goes to the organization that registers the awakened. But here's the weird thing. The girl at the front desk says that he's mistaken and that no one has ever been awakened at such an advanced age. Choi Hyun-sung doesn't understand what she's talking about until he catches his reflection in the mirror. An old man looks up at him from there. That currency points turned out to be his time of life. A point for a second. Nothing is free. Now the hero will have to make a literal living. He examines his belongings and decides to sell his game console through the system. At this time, a beautiful girl with demonic wings and horns sits on a throne in her dusky domain, scolding that she has already seen everything. Everything is monotonous and everything is already there. Then a notice appears in front of her about a new product she's scanned, and she hastily buys it, giving Choi Hyun-sung years of her life back. The hero begins to recover the lost points and sells his other items, and they are bought, which surprises him since most are junk. Somewhere in another dimension, the blonde-haired guy looks over the unknown goods he has purchased. He is attracted by a watch and a smartphone, which just happens to receive a notification of a charge to pay for communications. He doesn't understand what it is, but he pokes around and opens the camera with the filters. He gets excited when he sees his reflection and how the pink ears are attached to it. He plays with it sitting in the middle of the floating gazebo, surrounded by the same white birds. At the same time, in her dusky castle, the demoness is angry that she bought the hero's game console and a few other items. She is angry that the other toys could not get because someone bought them earlier. But there's another hitch. She does not understand what she bought and how to deal with it. The method of trial and error here works and the demoness begins the game. She gets killed at the end of the level, which makes her extremely angry. Choi Hyun-sung is trying to sell by honoring what he sees, so he learns that you can't sell someone else's, and you can't sell more than 10 at a time, and everything would be fine, but the 20% commission charged hinders his recovery. Even after a day of selling, the hero realizes that he will live 11 days with that kind of capital, only having decided to make a charge of hopelessness as he receives a message through the system that someone has complained about his goods. A pop-up window warns that if there are many complaints, his seller rating will go down and his activity will be suspended. The hero gets scared and decides to lower the price. The goods are immediately dispersed. But then another complaint arrives. Opening the notifications, the hero is horrified to find out that 14 out of 20 of his products have received a complaint and his business has been suspended for 3 days. The system warns that if he doesn't fix the problem, his business will be suspended for 3 months, which is fatal for Choi Hyun-seong. The hero begins to deal with a bunch of complaints and realizes that trade is being conducted not only with representatives of Earth, but also with civilizations where technology is not developed. So those who bought a console and a smartphone complained that it was enough for a couple of hours, not realizing that the devices need to be recharged. Here the hero once again realizes that if trading with ordinary people with technology would not be profitable. The market is already busy, then with the representatives of other worlds, a plowed field. He buys old technology at flea markets, but now sells it with charging instructions and batteries. Because of his raised power level, he earns more at the construction site, which he also spends on merchandise. And only he is unlocked as he resolves all disputed points and sells other equipment, fully restoring the original number of points and regaining his youth. Now he can go back to the organization and register again. This time it goes better. But registration is only the first step to getting a player ID. Choi Hyun-seong now has to take a 3-week course at the training center. You can study there for as long as you want until you pass the exam. There were some who were discouraged and didn't have their certificates because they weren't recognized as players. Choi Hyun-seong passed the exam the first time and got his license. The first thing he does is go to an equipment rental place. He needs armor to hunt and pay his family's bills. He was only able to buy the cheapest equipment with his savings. Now his way is to the dungeon. Along the way, he meets other players looking for a tank or a healer, promising him passage and protection. But Choi Hyun-seong decides not to join them. His goal is to catch the boss by himself. He approaches the portal to the dungeon of his tedious level. There are controllers at the entrance, people on the team scurrying in and out, taking out the wounded. Many people were surprised that he was walking alone, but no one stopped him, deciding that sometimes people need to let their self-confidence go. The hero swallows, but stubbornly follows his path. As he passed through the portal, the darkness of the dungeon enveloped him. The torches gleamed dimly. There was noise, groaning and groaning. Suddenly there was a scream. Choi Hyun-seong almost immediately stumbled upon his fellow players fighting a huge, toothy white rabbit. The hero falls into a stupor realizing that all of these wars are newbies like him, only coming out after 3 weeks of training. He sees some fall under the onslaught of the beast and others get on the defensive and realizes he was too presumptuous. But the choice has been made to go. It takes 8 minutes to kill a rabbit. The security guards that are present on the ground say that it's a good result for a solo and that it's enough for him, letting him pass on. Choi Hyun-seong enters invisible mode and goes to his battle. Horned Rabbit Dungeon. Lee Soo-hee and Kim Jae-soo, the commander, and the Soo Guild Hitler go through the dungeon looking for the rabbit boss, but he still doesn't show up. They go forward using the skill Dark Veil, so the white rabbits sleeping around them do not smell and do not hear them. But then the girls begin to hear footsteps. A player appears from the darkness ahead. Kim Jae-soo, the pretty blonde healer, is surprised that he could make it this far and makes the assumption that he lost his partner. But the more observant Lee Soo-hee points out that there's not a scratch on the approaching warrior. She immediately calls him crazy, noting also that he's in a rented outfit. The girl thinks that only a rookie would do something so stupid, but Kim Jae-soo says that a rookie wouldn't go into a dungeon solo. The girls watch for a display of courage and weak-mindedness, waiting for one of the bunnies to attack and drive the self-confidence out of the player. But Choi Hyun-seong walks confidently toward his goal and defeats the rabbit with one blow to the shock of the girls. The hero has a hard time with the first kill, but he himself is in a desperate situation, so without finding a loot from the enemy goes to the next one. Blow by blow he cuts through the population of toothy horned rabbits, but the loot is still gone. On what girls make sure that he is not a beginner, because the rules may drop the loot from the enemy if the player's level is less than the monster. And since the hero is left empty time after time, his level is 20 times higher than the level of these monsters that the novices go to in squads. But the fact that Choi Hyun-seong keeps chopping up rabbits makes the girls think that he might not be a beginner. But this is his first hunt since he doesn't know this peculiarity. But the hero keeps chopping up the animals, happy with the single crystals and lamenting that the level doesn't go up. 5 hours later, Choi Hyun-seong stops and looks at his statistics. He's only made 150 million and that's from selling technology, not rabbits. It's frustrating because the bills are still hanging over him like a sword of Damocles. He smiles and cheers himself up as another rabbit comes up behind him. Without looking, the hero kills it with a lightning strike. The fight goes on and Choi Hyun-seong kills it left and right, and his efforts have been redeemed by being given the achievement title of Horned Rabbit Hunter. The system says he can upgrade that rank to a rare one, which makes the hero very happy. Lee Soo-hee is still watching Choi Hyun-seong's exertions laughing. The hero is very entertaining to her. especially by killing rabbits with just one punch, when the average time to defeat a monster is 3 minutes 8 minutes. She decides to intervene when she sees that 3 monsters have been defeated in one fell swoop. The guild always needs good fighters. She calls out to the hero and he is surprised, because he did not even hear them breathing. He immediately draws attention to their equipment, personal and the highest level. The girls introduce themselves as security officers, and explain their lack of badges and their being so far away from the Isle by a mission. They also say that Choi Hyun-seong is very interested in them, which doesn't make the character happy at all. But when he finds out that they are from the Sioux Guild, he rejects their proposal as best he can out of fear of dealing with a company that represents the Sioux Guild. Ryo gets a business card and assures him that he can apply even if he has no such simple skills. The hero promises to think about it and leaves the dungeon without looking back. Choi Hyun-sung decides to try his luck at another dungeon. He hails a cab and asks for a ride to the Blood Fox dungeon. The cab driver smiles and says he knows the way since he has often taken players there. Upon arriving at the location, Choi Hyun-seong sees the same scene as at the Horned Rabbit dungeon. Players are beckoning H-Silers and tanks, the bustle and excitement of the teams. Upon entering the dungeon, the security team is again surprised that he is alone, but the hero pays no attention to them and goes to his goal. Again he sees a whole squad on one toothy fox, napping warriors from the security service. Moving further away from the crowd, he defeats 2 foxes at once, each for 180 points. After calculating how much he needs, the hero turns to go on to clear the dungeon, as the foxes themselves come out at him in droves. The real hunt begins. 2 hours later, 298, 299, 300 and Choi Hyun-sung gets the Blood Fox Hunter achievement. And this time his status window makes him happy because he got +1 to his strength and stamina. So the hero realizes that everything depends on his rank. He decides to check it, and just like that, a new pack of bloody foxes approached. 7 hours later, Choi Hyun-seong has a new achievement, Blood Fox Killer. This time the title is rare and gives him +2 to strength and +1 to stamina. The rank is rare, but there is room to grow to an epic one, which pleases the hero, and he decides to come to this dungeon tomorrow. After collecting all the crystals, he also discovers that a rare level skill book fell out of one fox. But unfortunately, he bought one on the first day of awakening and can't use the skills again. But he can sell it. He leaves the dungeon and goes to the security control where the rules require players to show what they got. The employee is shocked by the amount of crystals, and even more so when he sees a rare level skill book, which has never happened before in this dungeon. The hero is delighted with his successes, and even more so when he sells the looted crystals and the skill book to the player's organization. After doing the math, he realizes that he can earn 1,000,001 at this rate. Now his family's situation doesn't seem so bleak. He can help them and cure his father.